President Trump is under scrutiny after using federal police to help stage a photo op near the White House. On Monday, law enforcement used tear gas to clear peaceful protesters from Lafayette Park. The president was then escorted to St. John's Episcopal Church, where demonstrators had set a small fire the day prior. Mr. Trump was photographed in front of the church holding a Bible. Earlier, he had threatened to deploy the military to crack down on the unrest unfolding. Many Democrats are now slamming the president and calling for legislation to protect protesters.
I was not there in that park, but every one of us should wish we were there. And I'm telling you right now, if Donald Trump wants to gas someone next time, start right here. If he wants to shoot somebody with our federal officials with rubber bullets, start right here. If he wants to trample them with horses while they peacefully assemble, come to this body. Because what he did to those Americans in that square yesterday, he did to all of us.
CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes joins me now. Nancy, good to see you. What do we know about the legislation Democrats are proposing, and who is leading those efforts?
Well, Elaine, it's the Congressional Black Caucus in the House. There are a couple dozen members. They're working very swiftly. They held a very long conference call yesterday. They have been hearing from civil rights leaders who have a long list of initiatives that they would like Congress to propose. In the Senate, it's Cory Booker, whose sound you just played there, Kamala Harris. They want to move fast, and it's pretty easy for them to do so, frankly, because they've got a lot of legislation that's already been written, that has been introduced in the past but never went anywhere. So they're cleaning it up. They're adding a few things to it. They're deciding as a Democratic caucus, both in the House and the Senate, what they want to introduce, what they want to see in that package. And some of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus who I spoke to said they'd like to introduce more legislation by the end of the week. They think that this is the time to strike, that this is an issue that is on everyone's minds. And, you know, the types of things that they're considering really run the gamut, from creating a national registry of police misconduct so that police officials across the country know what's going on. They have talked about banning the use of chokeholds or incentivizing local police forces around the country to impose those bans. They've even talked about rolling back some protections, some immunity for police officers when there is misconduct and they get sued by members of the community. So, you know, it's still unclear what will end up in some of the final packages, but they're moving very, very quickly. They think this is the time to act.
Yeah, that idea of a registry is a really interesting one, because I know a lot of activists have been calling for that for a very long time, because it has been hard to get comprehensive data, they've argued, nationwide when you're looking at these individual local police departments. Well, Nancy, you spoke with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell earlier about this, and I want to play part of that exchange. Let's listen.
This is a vexing issue. If we could have figured out exactly what to do, I think we'd have done it years ago. It's one of our continuing, persistent problems in our society that we're all acutely aware of and searching for answers.
So, you know, Nancy, the question is, are Republicans going to actually get on board with any of this proposed legislation?
Hard to say. You know, Leader McConnell sounded very vague, non-committal. When I asked him about this issue today, he really couldn't name anything that he himself wanted to do to address either racial disparities or police accountability. He said that the issue needs to be discussed, that it's very important, that it's very challenging. But the very fact that this issue has been challenging for such a long period of time would lead you to believe that if he really did want to tackle it, he would have some ideas at this point. To a lot of Democrats, it sounded very much like Leader McConnell sounded after a spate of school shootings, when suddenly there was a lot of pressure for gun control legislation. And back then he said something needs to be done, that he was open to doing something. But all of these months later, he has never really gotten behind a piece of legislation. And they fear that the same thing is going to happen here. But Democrats control the House, so they know that they can move ahead, at least in the House. And, this is not a slam dunk, even among Democrats, Elaine. At least it hasn't been in the past. There have been Democrats from swing states who have been reluctant to get on board with measures that they feel might turn off some of their more moderate voters, sort of law and order voters who don't want to tie the police's hands in any way when they're dealing with incidents. And so that's part of the reason that these measures haven't passed before now, is because some Democrats have been a little leery. But now I'm told by both Democrats in the House and in the Senate, they feel that the atmosphere has changed. And Leader Schumer, when I asked him about this, he said that he had discussed this legislation with his entire caucus in a conference call and that he had heard no objections.
All right, Nancy Cordes for us. Nancy, always good to have you. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.